Hey everybody! I'm going to read a book to you called Stella, Poet Extraordinaire. I'm going to do this book a little differently than I've been doing, just so you guys can see each one of the pages. It is written by Wagstaff, and it's illustrated by Dana Reagan. And we're going to talk a little bit about poetry as we read this book. So here's your title page. You guys know about that part of the book. Like I said, it all started on the first day of school. It's time to go on a poetry walk, Mrs. M announced, smiling. We do this every year to jumpstart our writing. She took us outside with clipboards and pencils. Poetry is all around us. Just jot down any words that come to mind for things you see, hear, or feel. You can also sketch to get your mind going. Focus on what you're observing, and I'll show you how to turn your thinking into a poem when we return to class. So we've done some of that in school, haven't we? I kept staring up at the sky, so I wrote words like sky and up. I was kind of nervous, wondering what this poetry stuff was really supposed to be about. When we came inside, Mrs. M showed us her jotting. She had written a lot more than the rest of us, but she's like 40 years old. Then she reread her words slowly. She said she was savoring them to find the ones that stuck. I think I'll focus my poem on the bird I observed. She sang the whole time we were outside. Miss M tried lots of bird words on the paper. The bird was blue. I want to include that detail. And it was singing. What if I say sweetly singing? I like how both those words start with the same sound. So here's her sketch of her words as she went on her walk outside. She crossed out words, tried and retried until she came up with this. Bluish bird on a skinny top branch, sweetly singing. Did you have 2 worms for lunch? Gilbert worried. I'll never be able to do that. Mrs. M said not to fret. She was sure if we played with our words like she just showed us, we'd come up with something poetic too. You know what, writers? Starting our year with poetry is perfect because it helps us learn to observe more closely, experiment with words freely, and discover how just a few words on the page can be powerful. Those are important things for writers to take to heart. So I tried with all my heart. Here's my poem from the first day. Sky. I see sky, staring up, so blue today, wide. Sky. Oh, I like her sky poem. It wasn't the greatest thing I ever wrote, but it was my first poem. It was very special to me since I had captured something I would now remember from my first day of school. Plus, Miss M says that if we read our poem slowly and linger, she says linger like that, on the words, they can sound pretty special. And it's true. You've got to try it. We have a board in our room called Poetry Place, where we get to post our poems for others to read. Sometimes I choose to post mine, sometimes not. I write a lot of them just for myself. Miss M says that writing poetry is critical work because when you look at the world through the eyes of a poet, you might see and think of things in ways you wouldn't have before. We've talked about that too, haven't we? One time, Tanika tipped her chair back. She started to fall, so she grabbed her desk. Well, the whole thing toppled over, and all her desk stuff came flying out. Tanika felt horrible, interrupting class with a big crash. But Max suggested, let's write a poem about it. So we did. Desk avalanche. Miss M's talking way too long. I lean on back in my chair. Feels good. I lean way, way back. Feels bad. I grab my desk to catch myself. Crash! It's a desk avalanche. Crayons here, pencils there, books, papers everywhere. I'm so embarrassed. I close my eyes. Guess it's time to reorganize. Tanika felt better, seeing the whole mess in a different way, and we all ended up cleaning out our desk. After that, we wrote lots of other quick on-the-spot poems together. Miss M reads a lot of poetry to us. A couple of times a day, we stop for a poetry break. We might be lining up to go to PE, and she'll say, "Poetry break." We all stop and listen. Some of the poems are funny, rhyming stuff, good for a major laugh. Others are about everyday things like eating lunch, catching a bug, playing with friends, or seeing lightning. I especially like those, because they're the ones I'm good at writing. Sometimes she reads one poem 3 or 4 times so we can really sit with the words and feelings. That's what she calls it. Then she asks us, "What do you think?" We share our thoughts for a few minutes, making a lot of connections to poems we could write. Usually when somebody shares a little bit, someone gets an idea. Ideas ping-pong all over the place. We get pretty excited, and Miss M tells us to hurry and write down what we're thinking so it's not lost. Then, all of a sudden, we're a minute late for PE. That's happened to us too, hasn't it? Once a poem about a dog made Sophia think about a time her dog chewed on the dining room table leg. Boy, her parents were mad. That made me think of how my cat, Cutie, pries open window blinds and stuffs her fat, furry body through the slats so she can see the birds outside. I wrote my idea down and came back to it later. I thought about what Cutie looks like. She might be thinking, and I played with the new words, rereading, rearranging, until I had this. Fat cat sitting on the table, squeezes into the window blinds, halfway in and halfway out. Furry thing, she thinks the birds sound yummy. I'm glad I have this poem. Now I'll always remember my silly cat and her trips through the blinds. Another reason to write poetry is to get your feelings out. Feeling mad or sad? Write about it. You'll feel better. One day we were supposed to go on a field trip, but there was a tornado warning. Everyone was so disappointed, but Andreas was ready to explode. We went on with our math, but he got out his notebook and wrote. What a field trip. We didn't even have one. I want to rip my papers. I want to throw my book. No field trip. I hate tornadoes. When he was done, he put his head down on his desk for a while. It was a hard day, but writing made it better. Did you know you can write poems about things you're studying? When we studied the seasons, animal habitats, and magnets, we summed up our learning by writing class poems. Miss M says this is a great way for us to review what we've learned, decide what is most important, and create something lasting we can come back to again and again. That one's kind of fun to read. Try reading the examples in parentheses with gusto. That's what we did. Seasons. Make us wear different clothes. Shorts versus coats. Feel different temperatures. 102 degrees versus 15. Experience different weather. Sunny versus snowed in. Do different activities. Swimming versus sledding. What would our world be like without seasons? Miss M challenged us to come up with a wise thought at the end of our poem. That can be a little hard, but we did it together. When we were done, we made a poster and displayed it outside our classroom so everyone could see what we were learning. Miss M also said we could try a poem like that in our notebooks if we wanted. She always says this, and most of our notebooks are pretty stuffed. So our notebooks are like our poetry anthologies at Sparta, right? After we studied Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., she asked us to sit quietly and think about his life and what it teaches us. Then we all wrote our own poems, just words with feelings running down the page. Trayson wrote 5 words: I feel shame and madness. Powerful, huh? I wrote, Dr. Martin Luther King was brave. He thought people should not be judged by the color of their skin, but by what is on the inside. Do you live his harmony dream? Miss M was so moved by our poems, she bound them together in a book. One rainy day, we sat in our classroom library and reread them and remembered. Let me just give you warning. Poetry can really hook you. You think of something serious like Dr. Martin Luther King, or notice something ordinary like the smell of popcorn, and words start bouncing around in your head, and you can't stop thinking about them. You have to write those words down. Felipe, one of the boys in my class, actually got in trouble for writing poetry. Here's what happened. He was lying in bed at night, and an idea for a poem popped into his head. He got up, grabbed some paper, and crouched down by his nightlight to write it down. Well, his mom came in to check on him. What are you doing? You're supposed to be asleep. And he said, I have another poem in my head. I have to get it out. Can you believe it? Risking your life for a poem? I'd say he's hooked. He wrote so many poems that at the end of the year, Miss M typed them and bound them in a book for him to keep. Here's one I really like because it sounds like my room looks a lot like his. My messy room. My room is so messy, my room is so messy, you can't walk in. Messy! I have a baseball game and I can't find my mitt. Why am I so messy? By Felipe. What do you think of Felipe's messy room poem? Miss M said he captured something he may have lost without writing it. And he may have learned something about himself to boot. Plus, she says, poems can make someone's day brighter, maybe with a laugh or a sigh. Or they can even help people feel better about themselves because they can relate to the poem. Wow, I didn't know poetry could do all of that. Well, that's how Miss Sim helped us become Poets, she says. Don't try for perfection. Don't stop yourself. Just notice and write. See where the words take you. I feel pretty confident writing poetry now. Like a poet extraordinaire. I look more closely at things. I linger so I can pick just the right words for what I'm observing, thinking, or feeling. And when I write poems, I discover thoughts I didn't know I had. During our last poetry walk outside, I spent some time staring, thinking, sketching, and writing words about that tunnel. When I came inside, I struggled a bit, trying words, rereading, crossing out, trying again. But then I wrote this. Tunnel. I've crawled through you a jillion times. Now I see you differently. Inside that tunnel, long, red, rocket tube, I'm off to the moon. One afternoon, during the last week of school, our class had a poetry jam. We had a microphone up front and took turns reading our poems to a huge audience of our parents and grandparents and whoever wanted to come. Sophia read about her dog chewing the table. Trayson read about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We all read about seasons together. Felipe read about his messy room, and I read about that red tunnel. And to finish, Miss M read a poem she wrote especially for us. Young weavers, to you, writers, thinkers, and doers, Off you go to make great things happen in our school and in our world. I am proud of you, young poets, young weavers of words. Weave, weave. So that is a really fun book about how to write poetry and about a little girl that at school learned to write poetry with her teacher. And we've written lots of poems this year. You guys have your poetry anthologies that I promise I will get to you as soon as I can because I want y'all to have that. What I want to challenge you with is maybe writing some poems. And what you can do is keep them in a notebook or in a folder or in a drawer on whatever paper you want to use. And then we can glue them into your poetry anthologies, or you can get your parents to help you glue them in. You can add them to your anthologies. And not tomorrow, not Friday, because we have other things planned, but maybe one day next week, I was thinking we could plan a poetry jam and you guys could read some of your poems that you've written. Okay? I love you guys and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Have fun writing poems.